Welcome to the Finding Purpose LiveCast, where we feature authors, leaders, and speakers of purpose on a live platform to have truly authentic conversations. And now your host, Davin Salvagno.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
I am so happy to be here. I can't even tell you, Davin. It's a gorgeous, amazing day, and I'm excited to share my story with everybody.
I'm excited to have you here today. You have an incredible story, and you have an incredible heart for making an impact and inspiring and engaging other people. And so today we are here with Kim Kassner. She is the founder of Empowermind. She is the creator of Getting Your Happy On, and she's also the author of You're a Genius and I Can Prove It. And so there's a lot to unpack in the journey that you've been on. And so why don't we start and just share who Kim Kassner is and tell us your story.
Okay. Let me start with why I created Empowermind. As I was growing up, I learned differently. I was intuitive. I was a kinesthetic learner. I learned by doing, and I was visual. I was kind of that combination. So learning was difficult, but I did really well because I pushed myself. So it was always in the back of my mind feeling insecure about learning or being put on the spot. Even when I worked for Pepsi, I was still a very strong performer in the country, but every time I rode with my boss, because he was very left brain, methodical, detail oriented, the opposite way that I learned, I would always feel insecure or inadequate because I didn't do it their way. So something was building inside of me that said, there is no one way to do things. There's your way, whatever works for you, whatever your system of learning is. So it's not just, are you right brain, are you left brain, which senses do you learn from? It's really a whole combination, a puzzle of what is it that helps you perform best in your life, whether you're learning in school, in the job, in your life in general. So as I was going through my life at Pepsi, I also at 21 had heard an advertisement for the Dale Carnegie course, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I thought, oh, I could teach that course. And so I went to the course discovering that the people were quite exceptional speakers, and I couldn't just jump in there and do that. I had to go through a process. So I stayed with Dale Carnegie for 6 years and ended up becoming an instructor while working for Pepsi. And what I learned is the biggest piece I got out of that is what happens when you focus just on somebody's strengths and you play to their strengths. In Dale Carnegie, that's what everybody did. Even if somebody gave the worst possible talk you can imagine, it was profound how the trainer could pull out strength that was real, that was sincere in that person, even if it was courage just to get up in front of the room again. So that really ignited a passion in me in training. And so I knew I had to leave Pepsi. I didn't want to sell sugar water the rest of my life, and they didn't want me to get into training because I was strong in sales. So I left Pepsi and I moved out to California and decided to start programs in public speaking, creating your own success, some memory processing. And I started with adults, but nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows anything about me. How do you get people to come, right? So I had these little small groups. The church I was involved in, they would come to the group, and I was working only with adults. Then one day I was sitting in my studio apartment in San Francisco, and the news came on, and the students were joining gangs, dropping out of school, they were on drugs. It was just a horrific newscast, and it just touched me deeply in a very profound way. It was a God moment for me. It was an epiphany. It was a moment where I just looked at that TV and I thought, I can help that group. That's the group I'm going to make a difference for. And I had, goosebumps through my whole body. And I knew that I needed to learn some things that brought students from D's and F's, were very disruptive types of students in the world. I had to not only help them emotionally, but I had to help them with linear results, A's and E's to A's and B's. So I did some more research in study skills. So when I learned the study skills, I not only took a study skill, but I made it universal so that it was about discovering how to use the study skill, how to create the system. I don't tell people just one way to take notes or one way to read and retain information. There's a myriad of limitless possibilities for somebody to learn in their best way. So after I learned that, I put everything that I had seen had results, very results oriented. And so I took all the programs and processes that I went through, including I went through a 500-hour psychotherapy process, learning how childhood and parenting really affects the core of who we are in our belief system. So between all the Carnegie, the self-awareness, the programs and researching that I had gone through, I put together the best of the best that I had seen had results every single time. And I put that together in a workshop, and I sold it to a principal at a high school. And boy, that was a tough sell because nobody had heard of me. They didn't believe that I could do any of this. And he challenged me to work with a few students that were the delinquents, supposedly, of the school. And he said, if this group wants you to work with them, I'll come watch your workshop and see. Now, I hadn't even done a full workshop before this. I just had it all together and did pieces of it, right? So I guess the kids were pretty blown away. They didn't want me to leave after the hour. And so he committed to coming to the workshop. He not only stayed the first few hours that he said he was going to stay, he stayed through the whole entire workshop. And I said, Nando, you're still here. And he said, well, this really works. And so he created a pilot at his school with 19 of his greatest at-risk students. And that's where Empowermind really began and got the results, because we had students that, you know, were getting C's and D's. Now we're getting A's and B's. And I'm talking in that program, it was only 16 hours that I spent with the students. Normally the workshops are 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, even when I start out the workshops, I tell them, if there's something you can't learn, let's say I show you a memory exercise and you're not able to do it, whose fault is that? And they'll say mine, or, you know, maybe yours. I said, it's my fault. I'm a learning expert. You're all my puzzles. It is my responsibility to figure you out. And if I can't do that, I'll work with you personally, or I'll tweak it. I'll figure out your way. All the pressure's on me. It's not on you. Now you can just see everybody in the room. I'm not going to be put on the spot. How awesome is that? I want to give you an example of that. I've got these at-risk students. This was dubbed the gang capital of the United States, East Palo Alto at the time, due to gangs. And it was so incredibly rough, this neighborhood. It's where Dangerous Minds was filmed. And these students really thought that they were inadequate. I mean, for them to have to even come to a workshop on learning on Saturday was like amazing, because they were so angry coming in. And so, like, almost every student I have that comes in that's forced to come in, a teenager. And so when I'm teaching them, I start out the workshop, and see, I want to back up a second, is I believe you don't learn through lecture. I believe you don't learn through somebody telling you how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to be, someone telling you you're a genius or telling you anything. You have to have an experience of it, a personal experience. Once they have an experience, then they can shift. So how I start out the workshop is I say, how many of you, how long would it take you to memorize 20 words, forwards and backwards, random words? They have nothing to do with anything. Well, some students are starting to get in fear, oh my gosh, that'd take me days, it'd take me hours. I don't think I could ever do it. Those types of responses. And I say, so if you were able to do this, now I'm setting the bar for them. And they're actually setting the bar for themselves. You'd have to be really smart to be able to do that in, say, a few minutes, wouldn't you? And they're like, well, yeah, but there's no way. So if you were able to do that and then retain all those words with just like a 1-minute review a week later, that's almost like genius. And they're like, well, yeah, or a really great memory. And said, okay, well, let's see. So we go through this, the exercise, and generally everybody always gets 100%. In this case, we had one student that didn't. David was way behind the 8 ball on getting credit hours for graduation. He was a junior and he was more like a freshman. And they wouldn't let him play football, which was his strength, his gift, his purpose, because his grades weren't very good, because he learned kinesthetically. The very toughest way for a student to learn in school is to learn by doing. So when we did the 20 words, David only got 3. So I said, oh, David, I'm so glad this happened. I said, how many of you here have ever had your mind go blank? And everybody's hand goes up, including mine. So now we have a commonality. Everybody's had this happen to them. I said, but it's not about your intelligence. Sometimes when we get anxious or excited or we get distracted, we're not able to tap into the natural way we learn. I said, on break, I'll show you how to do it and you'll be able to do it. No problem. So all the attention's off David. He's okay now. He hasn't been humiliated. That's new for him. And everybody goes about the rest of the workshop. Now on break, a few minutes, I showed David how to remember the list by using his body and acting out some of the things. So he's got all 20. So we're at the end of the workshop. This is like almost 8 hours later. And I say, hey, David, would you like to try the 20 words? He gets all 20 of the words and the whole room goes nuts, clapping and cheering for him. And if you could have seen light in this student, he was waiting for us a half an hour the next week for the second half, a half hour before we even got there. Because when somebody is told their whole life they're stupid, they can't, they're learning disabled, they're at risk, they don't believe that they can't do something. So when that is shattered, in a moment, it changes everything. So, do you have any questions at this?
No, that is so powerful, because I think, the self-limitations that we put upon ourselves are the biggest barrier to fulfilling whatever purpose that we were created for. And so I'm just thinking, here you are and you have this amazing story of figuring out how people learn and then figuring out a way to teach that and then attaching a purpose to that so that you could help students who maybe otherwise wouldn't have been reached out to help unlock the potential within them through your learning techniques. And it results in this story of this one kid, David, who, if you hadn't done what you did, if you hadn't taken the time to develop the techniques that you did, if you hadn't taken the time to teach this class, even when that moment happened where he was the one kid who couldn't recognize and remember those words, you turned what could have been a very humiliating and debilitating moment for him into a tremendous opportunity. And what it resulted in is him experiencing almost being the hero of that moment, right? And in any other time when he would have been, maligned against or made fun of or whatever, you turned him into a hero in the moment through what you did, and truly made a lasting impact that I am sure he is going to remember for the rest of his life. That was a transformational moment in his life that he will never forget because of what you do and how you did it. And it's just so powerful when you think of how that applies not just to children, but to everyone. I know that you work with adults and with corporations, and you do a lot of speaking events and a lot of engagements, and you're able to help unlock that inner genius within so many people and help them see the potential within themselves that they weren't able to see for themselves, and to create that hero moment in each and every single person. And it's just so encouraging to me every single time that I hear you tell a story like that. Talk to us about how you have taken that. And because again, you turned it into a book, you're a genius, I could prove it. You turned it into the system called Empowermind. You have these videos of getting your happy on. But I know that you've been on tons of different media channels. You've spoken in front of a ton of audiences, and you work with a lot of corporations. Talk to us about that, taking what you just did there and now applying it to everyone as a whole.
Okay, well, first of all, adults are just bigger kids. Okay, we know that, right? And so they've got the same, issues. They're just bigger. And so I've taken kids that were the problem students, and when I make them the hero, that's what you said, make them the hero of the class, it shifts everything. So when I started at another Fortune 500 company, I won't mention the name, I had when I came in, I was invited in because somebody had read my book and experienced the workshop and asked HR to bring me in. She said, you've got to get between a 9 and a 10 rating for the first 3 workshops or you'll never be called back. So she said the night before she called me and said, I'm sorry, I had to get minimum person in, the 19th person, and this is a rough guy. I go, well, tell me about him. And she just said, well, he's in quality assurance and he's really just tough. I apologize ahead of time. And I thought, oh, great. That's going to be my hero. And so what happens is I take the person that's the most difficult and I feed them and acknowledge their strength and have that blossom for everybody else to see in the workshop, and shifts that person. And so as soon as he walked in, I knew who it was. I knew this is the guy, and I think before I even started, he was going to give me a 2. And I got a 9.3 rating on all the workshop, and the lowest I got was 1.8. And I don't even think he was the 8. So it was pretty exciting because when you do that focus, it changes everything. And see, I didn't start out with adults. In corporations and companies, I started out with students. But what happened is I'd have teachers and principals and parents that own companies and that were working for companies come through the public workshop with their kids. And they'd say, oh my gosh, can you do this for our company or corporation? We need to learn things faster. Let me just give you 2 quick examples that happened at 2 different companies. Is one of them, this woman had a head injury and she couldn't remember anything, and she'd come back to work and she was very insecure and very scared to come through the workshop. Well, when I taught people how to remember people's names, and there were about 30 people in the workshop, I said, do we have any volunteers? She jumps up right in the middle and says, I'm going to do it. And she goes, boom, boom, boom. And she says everybody's name around the whole workshop. And she was just on fire. And she said, I cannot believe I was able to do that. That's like impossible. And things like that happen all the time. I have people come over to me personally on break and tell me amazing spiritual stories that have happened to them, because we really do a mind, body, spirit exercise and weaving it through the whole entire workshop. So it's very spiritual, but I would never call it that, companies and corporations, because you might think it's something more religious, but it's really about coming from that place of strength, love, joy, all those positive emotions, and putting that focus onto them. Another quick one was a man was trying to memorize something. We were all doing memorizing. They had to learn spec sheets. I don't know if you know engineers, but engineers had, they had 100 spec sheets that they had to learn. And in the process, I said, well, we've got a few minutes left, about 10 minutes left in this exercise, and we're going to have to move on. I walked up to this man because I saw he'd only gotten a third of it memorized. And I said, I can show you how to memorize the whole entire sheet in a few minutes. I said, I know how you learn. I said, not only will you be able to memorize it, but you'll be able to apply it to every other spec sheet you ever have to learn. And he's like, okay. I said, all you have to do is ask me for help. And he put his head down and he could not do it. And the HR woman's like, oh my gosh, he can't ask for help. So again, I take responsibility. Okay, if I'm not reaching him, if this isn't happening, it's got to be me. And I hadn't worked with engineers before. So the next time I worked with engineers, I started out the workshop and I said to him, how many of you think it's better to get a problem solved in 20 minutes versus 2 or 3 hours? Well, 20 minutes. I said, I know that you all are our problem solvers. I know that you're the geniuses that make things happen on this planet for us. And it is your self-esteem and your pride to be able to teach other people and problem solve for yourself. I said, would you be willing to pick up the phone or stand the cubicle next to you and ask somebody a question that might just be that little piece, that nugget that you need, that you can't get over to get to the next place? And now they were like deers in the headlights. And I said, how many of you use computers and calculators? And everybody's hands up. And I said, but did you create those? Did you invent those? No, those are just a tool. And I said, isn't the real genius being able to ask for help and utilize every single tool available, including other people? It's like maybe to most people that would seem basic, right? When somebody's in a very left brain problem solving mode, they don't think like that. I had 2 engineers come up to me on break and said, whoa, that just blew my mind. Because their belief system's so entrenched in who they are and what they're supposed to do and what success means and what accomplishments mean as that engineer.
Wow. That is powerful. And I think when I know people listening to this right now are hearing story after story in this training. It's like, it sounds like it's amazing that you can get such quick results through some of these things that you've done. But I'm sure that there are some people listening right now that's saying, well, this is great, but how does it help me? Maybe they're even asking, like, I struggle with asking for help. I struggle with memorizing things. I struggle with all of these things that you're talking about. And they're kind of like, how can I apply this? What would you, obviously we can't do a whole course here in the few minutes we have left, but as we start to wrap up here, what are some things, some insights, some wisdom that you would give to those listening right now and those that will be listening to us in the future that they can apply to how they think, how they learn, that can help them?
Well, Davin, is very individual for everybody because somebody may have let's say somebody has an issue asking for help. Okay, I'll address that one first. I would ask them, like I would ask you, Kevin, how does it make you feel when you give something to somebody else and you change their life? How does it make you feel? You can tell me.
Fulfilling. So fulfilling.
Is it like one of the best things that could happen?
Absolutely.
To ignite you? Then I would say you are depriving other people of that. You're taking that feeling and that joy from the people that love you, your intimate friends, and the people that care about you and want to have that same feeling because they care and love you so much because you're so giving and so helpful. Wow, if they could help and give back to you, how powerful would they feel and how ignited would they feel in their journey? And by you not allowing that or blocking that or not asking, stops that.
Wow. What perspective. By not asking for I never thought about that. When I help people, I feel fulfilled. It's a great feeling. I impacted someone's life in some way. And then by not asking for help, I'm robbing someone of the opportunity to have that exact feeling.
I know, it's
so
wild.
Good. So good.
And so, another thing too is a lot of times when we forget things like forget something on a professional exam or a test, or we're in the grocery store and we turn around and we see somebody that we know, but we forget their name. Has that ever happened? Say yes.
Yes.
And so It's not because we don't know their name. It's not because we don't know the answers on the test often. It's because we go into a place of anxiety where our brainwave frequencies are going so fast, we have to calm them down so we can be present and we can remember and we can be in the moment and access the information that's in our subconscious. But that's a whole section on how do we access the subconscious. And so when you learn all these cool things about yourself, it's really self-awareness. You're able to take the tools from the outside and utilize those with your specific learning system. People will say all the time, oh, you're a memory genius. You can memorize things. As I'm teaching them, I have them all memorized and stuff. And people will say, I can't even believe that. Now my son will say, Mom, you got to cop the truth. You got to tell them about your memory, because for times, I know, this kind of leads into the happy channel. Currently, I had a really rough decade. I had 7 close deaths in 8 years, and my husband has progressive multiple sclerosis. And in that time, I'm telling you, talk about a challenge in your memory. When you're under stress and panic, I would be talking on the phone from the hospital, and I'd say to my sister, I can't find my phone. I can't find it. I lost it. And she's like, you're talking in it. That's what can happen to a level of heightened stress and take you completely out of yourself. And I started the Getting Your Happy On with Kimberly channel in January. I've got 72 videos now. I like to talk. And it's my give back. People would say to me, you're still happy, you're still joyful, you still have an incredible life. People didn't even know what I was going through when I was going through it. Because when you have a connection with Source, with God, with Spirit, and you let go, there's so many different processes that I can't even have time to talk about. I have hundreds of videos inside me. And so I needed to get those out to help other people that are going through anything in their life and to find their happy bubble, their joy, especially in this time we're in now, is how do you find that happy bubble? Are you immersed in news and negativity? And how is that serving you? How's that serving your family, your friends, in your community?
Yeah. I think that's so important because a lot of times when we think of the word happy or even your phrase, getting your happy on, a lot of times people think, oh, happy is just touchy-feely, good feeling. But there's such a practicality to potential and being happy. When we are happy, we are creative, we are innovative. Our potential comes out because, as you just mentioned, the stress is minimized. And so the creative juices are allowed to flow. Our brains are allowed to function at a much higher level because they're not stifled. But when we are not happy and we are, dealing with anxiety or stress or whatever those things are, each one of them then becomes a roadblock or a barrier for that creative genius to come out, for that innovation to come out. So it's important to be happy, not just because it feels good, but because you can't really fully realize your potential or live out your purpose if you're in any other state. So getting to a state of happiness unlocks the fullness of who you were created to be.
Absolutely.
So good.
Absolutely. You can't be a light to others if you're entrenched in pain and negativity. You have to put the oxygen mask on first.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, I know that there is so much more that we can talk about, and we will have to do this again because I know people are kind of like, I want that. I want to be able to be happy. I want to get my creative juices flowing. I want to be able to memorize things the way that Kim's talk about it. And I know there's some workshops and things that you do and that we can talk about. And so I would encourage for those listening today, they can find, I believe, 70 some episodes, right, that are on YouTube, they're on Facebook. There is your book, You're a Genius, and I Can Prove It, that they can get practical stuff from to apply to their own life. And that's available at purposepoint.com and on Amazon. And of course, There's different speaking engagements that when we get back to doing that again, people can come actually see you demonstrate this stuff live in crowds and actually see the genius being unlocked. So if you're listening to Kim today, I would encourage you to follow her and to check out a lot of her videos and to apply them to your life so that you could fulfill your potential and your purpose. So Kim, as we wrap up, just a closing thought for those that were listening today and those that listen in the future, what is a word of encouragement that you would give to those right now that, you know, maybe they're not in that euphoria state of happiness and they want to be there. They want to be able to experience everything you just talked about. What would you say to encourage, inspire them today?
I would say it's important to take baby steps. You've got to be real with where you are. If you're in a depressed state on the emotional scale, getting angry is even a step up from depression. And then from angry to frustration, and then kind of move up. So don't be hard on yourself. You're here listening to this right now for a reason. It's not about being able to go from depression or pain or grief right up to happiness. Believe me, I've been in those places. It's not about not feeling your feelings. It's about slowly moving up and starting to surround yourself with things that bring you joy, people that bring you joy.
That is fantastic advice. Baby steps and asking for help. A lot of times we don't want to ask for help, and we rob others of the opportunity to experience the same feeling that we get when we give help. Kim, thank you so much for sharing your story,
so welcome.
Your wisdom, your insight. We will definitely have to do another episode of this so that you can share more, and grateful for you taking time out of your schedule to be here today.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening.
Today, we were with Kim Kassner. Kim, again, is the creator of Getting Your Happy On with Kim Kassner. She's the founder of Empowermind and the author of the book, You're a Genius and I Can Prove It. And you can find Kim at purposepoint.com. You can follow Kim on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on her YouTube channel. And of course, you can get her book wherever books are sold. Thank you again for tuning in today to the Finding Purpose LiveCast. We hope